All right, let's talk about Walt Whitman's Song of Myself. Now, this is one of those poems that's, foundational to American literature. It's huge, it can feel a little intimidating, maybe even sprawling when you first look at it, but honestly, at its core, it's this incredibly powerful, super personal look at what it even means to be alive. So, let's jump in and deconstruct this classic. So Whitman just throws down the gauntlet with this opening. I celebrate myself and sing myself. And right away you might think, whoa, a little arrogant maybe? But it's not just ego. He's making this wild claim right from the jump. He says, what I assume, you shall assume. Basically, he's telling us that his individual self, his I, is completely fundamentally connected to your you. Every atom. It's like he's setting the stage for this massive idea that the personal is about to become totally universal.
Okay, so how are we going to tackle this beast of a poem? We've broken it down into 5 key parts. First, we'll look at celebrating the self. Then, we'll get into the body and the soul. After that, lessons in the grass. Then, the song of everyone, and we'll wrap it all up with the big one, I contain multitudes. First up, celebrating the self. This is really the journey's beginning. The whole idea is that to get a handle on the world, the speaker has to start by looking inward and really understanding himself on his own terms.
And he does this by setting aside all creeds and schools in abeyance. Now, it's not that he's totally rejecting everything he's ever learned from society or church or school. Not at all. He's just putting it on the shelf for a little while. His goal here is to experience the world directly, to cut through all the noise and secondhand opinions and just see what's really there.
And what's cool is how Whitman grounds this massive philosophical journey in something so, human. He just tells us straight up he's 37. He's in perfect health. This isn't some old man looking back on his life with regret. No, this is a guy in his prime, totally ready and pumped to experience absolutely everything. So what's the goal? He ditches what he calls the perfumed rooms of society and heads for nature. He wants to become naked and undisguised. And we're not just talking about clothes here. He's stripping away all the layers, the manners, the social expectations, all the formal arguments, just to simply be. It's a search for what's real, for total authenticity.
Okay, so this whole quest for what's real leads us right into our second big theme, the body and the soul. Once he's out there in nature, he sets up this really amazing meeting, basically a conversation between his physical self and his spiritual self.
He says, I loaf with me on the grass. I believe in you, my soul. The other I am must not abase itself to you. You have to understand, back in Whitman's day, this was completely revolutionary. The common idea was that the soul was everything, and the body was just this sinful, lesser thing. But Whitman, he says no way. He imagines them as total equals, just chilling together on the grass. The body isn't something to be ashamed of, it's a crucial, equal partner to the soul.
And what happens when these two parts of him come together? The result is this profound peace, a peace that, as he says, pass all the argument of the earth. It's this deep, unshakable feeling of contentment that's just beyond logic, beyond any debate. By getting his body and soul in harmony, he finds a kind of quiet that all the talkers and their arguments could never ever give him.
All right, so he's found this inner peace. Now what? Well, he turns his attention back to the world, and he starts with something so small, so simple, you could easily miss it. This brings us to part 3, lessons in the grass.
It all kicks off with a kid's question. A child comes up to him and asks, what is the grass? And this super simple question just launches one of the most famous parts of the whole poem. And the speaker's first move is to admit he doesn't really have one answer. And that, right there, is the whole point. The grass isn't just one thing, it's everything.
So instead of one answer, he gives us this incredible cascade of possibilities. He says maybe the grass is the flag of my disposition, a symbol of his own hopeful spirit. Or maybe it's the handkerchief of the Lord, like a little gift dropped from heaven. He calls it a uniform hieroglyphic, a universal symbol that everyone, everywhere can understand. And then, wow, he says it's the beautiful uncut hair of graves, a stunning image that connects him and us to everyone who has ever lived and died.
And this idea gives us a whole new perspective on life's end. He concludes that to die is different from what anyone supposed and luckier. I mean, think about that. Luck-ear. This was so radical for his time. Through this one image of grass growing from graves, he's arguing that death isn't some final terrible end. It's just a transformation into new life. It's not something we should fear, but actually a fortunate part of a never-ending cycle.
So, if the grass connects him to the dead, what about the living? Well, this is where Whitman's vision just explodes outward. He starts to see himself in every single person he looks at, which brings us to the Song of Everyone.
And the poem just launches into these amazing lists, these catalogs of American life. We see the butcher boy sharpening his knife. We see the blacksmiths working with total precision. There's the teamster driving his horses, the carpenter, the farmer, the machinist. He doesn't just list them, he celebrates them. He finds the dignity and the poetry in their everyday work.
And here's the connection he makes, which is just so powerful. He says, "These people tend inward to me, and I tend outward to them." It's a two-way street. Their lives and experiences flow into him, and his empathy and understanding flow back out to them. Suddenly, his self isn't just his anymore. It's this incredible fabric woven from the threads of everybody else's life. The song of myself has become the song of everyone.
And this all leads us to the grand finale, the poem's most powerful, climactic idea. If his self really does contain everyone, well, then it has to contain all of life's messiness, all its complexity, and yeah, all its contradictions. This is section 5, I contain multitudes. He just flat out declares that he's everything at once. He is old, but he is also young. He is foolish, and at the same time, he is wise. He's maternal and paternal, a child and a man. See, it's not a choice between one or the other. He's saying he is large enough to be both, simultaneously. And this isn't some kind of weakness or confusion. It's a sign of a massive, powerful, all-encompassing identity. And this lands on what might be one of the most powerful lines of self-acceptance in all of literature. I exist as I am, that is enough. After this whole epic journey of discovery, the conclusion is beautifully simple. He doesn't need anyone else's approval. He doesn't need to be justified or even understood. Just to exist, with all his complexity, that is enough.
And then we get to it. The most famous, most defiant lines in the whole poem. Do I contradict myself? Very well, then I contradict myself. I am large, I contain multitudes. He's not apologizing for being inconsistent, he's celebrating it. He basically says that to live a truly rich, full, empathetic life, you have to hold opposing ideas and feelings all at once. It's the absolute ultimate expression of his entire philosophy.
So, in the end, Song of Myself isn't really just about Walt Whitman, is it? Remember that very first line? What I assume you shall assume? That was an invitation all along. The whole poem turns the mirror back on us, and it leaves us with this one big thought-provoking question to chew on. What multitudes do you contain?